Thank you. Thank you. It's a third album called Gestureland, and a fourth novel called Truly Like Lightning. Let's keep it score. Before I think about doing any kind of reading from the book, I just wanted to get a gauge on if people have gotten the book and had a chance to read it. Now, don't be shy if you have. Okay, it's not a lot because it just came out a couple days ago. So yeah, I know you have it, but it's like I read it. So first page. Okay, so I won't read the first page. So I mean, maybe I don't know. Why don't we just start talking? Because you already have the book, and I'm assuming you're going to read it. And I think these discussions are more fruitful than me just sitting here reading something that you're going to read later. Yeah?
Yeah.
Read anything.
And then we can get to audience questions too. Maybe sooner. Maybe have more time for that. If I shut up now, we just go right into it. So let's do that.
Okay, well, I want to say welcome to Portland.
Thank you.
It's really great to have you here. And for anybody who hasn't read the book yet, you really should, because it's really good.
And it's short.
It is short.
In fact, we can have a quick recess now. We're all going to go read.
Yes, everyone will just go read the book. No, it's actually.
No reading during this, though. I got my eye on you already.
No, it's a real. In addition to you being the personification of a multi-talented person who makes the rest of us look like total slackers. Yeah. The book is really, it's quite affecting. And what I really was impressed by is that, it starts out with kind of some dark humor, when obviously humor is something that has shown up in your work before. And for example, I got a giant kick out of early on, you've got Ridley, your protagonist, who's quarantining in his apartment, making sort of grumpy comments about other people's masks and how they all have messages and political messages, which is quite funny. But then as it goes on, it gets surreal and intense. And the tone is, I don't think I've ever read anything with a tone like this. And it seemed somehow absolutely perfect for especially those really scary early days of the pandemic. And I know you've talked about this before and how you sort of were inspired by, you were in lockdown yourself and that kind of led you to write the book. But at the risk of making you talk about this again, I just kind of wanted to ask you, how you decided to use that time to write this book and why this particular story.
Thanks. I didn't actually write it during that time. I wrote it maybe a little more than a year ago. But I never thought I was going to sit down and try to write a pandemic fiction. It seemed to me like, why do that? Also because I have a sense, my sense of the world is that we need longer to process things than we do now because we have all these political shows and everything on TV, and there's people writing memoirs, 2 months out of the administration, and we're looking at history just. So-called history books are written 6 months after the thing happened, and I'm not sure that that's the best way to digest it. I'm not saying you can't do it, but for me it was like, okay, whatever is happening now in this pandemic, whatever is happening, I'm going to figure it out in my way 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever. But I just had this vision, because I take these time-lapse photos of Central Park, the Reservoir, where I live, and I've been doing that for years. And I was doing it during the pandemic, and then I just had this image that this guy like me would do that. And then I thought of like Rear Window, and what if I saw across the park on Fifth Avenue one lonely, dark night during the pandemic, everything's so quiet, lights flashing that I thought were intentional for me, for some reason. And what mystery would then happen if I went out into the death and menace, plague-ridden city to try and make a human connection with this damsel in distress I'm imagining, or Rapunzel or whatever, some fairy tale, urbanized fairy tale. So then I had my structure there, and I thought, okay, that's interesting, short story, whatever. I didn't know what it was going to be. And then, I thought, who's this guy? It's not me. Who's this guy? And then I was like, well, you know, I hate Wall Street and I hate Wall Streeters. Because I didn't want to give him an occupation that I had to research. Because I wanted to get going. I wanted to write it. So I was like, okay, I can make like snide comments about Wall Street. And I wanted the guy to be like a mediocrity. But one of these guys that thinks, oh, I could have been an artist if I hadn't had to work this 9-to-5 job or whatever. I feel like I'm an artist because I own art, you know, one of those guys. And I started off satirizing that consciousness, that consumerism of art consciousness. Because he takes these time-lapse photos, he thinks he has something to say. Finally, he's going to do it through these time-lapse photos. He thinks, because he's my age, I'll get a YouTube channel. He doesn't understand TikTok or anything. So he's going to be this late-blooming artist. So I'm going to satirize this guy. But then as I got into it, luckily I started to feel for him more than just wanting to satirize him, which is the best thing that can happen when you're writing, you know, or acting. You can't. I mean, it's a cliche. People say, you know, if you're playing a villain doesn't know he's a villain. A villain thinks he's the hero of the story. Everybody thinks they're the hero of the story. So I just started. It kind of flowed into this real feeling for this guy, sympathy for him, empathy, whatever, and that's how it played out. And I didn't know, like for instance, like the Wall Street aspect of it. It was just a convenient kind of assignation that I made in the beginning. But then there's two cataclysmic tragic events of my lifetime, at least, the 9/11 and the pandemic, which involve the world socially in a tragedy. And all of a sudden he was on Wall Street at 9/11. I was like, oh Jesus, okay, that was smart of me. So it became this kind of echo within the novel of these cataclysmic events that we go through as a society or as a world, really. I mean, this last one was a world. 9/11 felt like the world, but it was, you know, it happened in New York. And we all come out of it saying, hey, you know, I figured out, you know, life is about love and it's about family, and I'm going to tell everybody that I love them. And I get it now. Thank you, tragedy, for teaching me the way. And that lasts for like 6 weeks. So that's what it kind of came to be about, was like, I know why we need to be shocked out of our kind of default position of, yeah, I know who I love, but I'm just gonna keep it close. And I gotta do my shit. I gotta live my life, and I can't be loving on you all the time because I gotta go out there and do my thing. I gotta focus on other things. And, you know, the question of why you can't live your life in that kind of space of loving your fellow human. Or at least this guy can't, or at least this guy can't. So, that was it.
Yeah, you mentioned that you know.
I don't need to read it.
Well, and it's certainly, you know, there are those elements of satire, and you do a really good job of sort of, you know, kind of making fun of this guy's delusions of grandeur, and, you know, as he takes these time-lapse images on his phone, the world will see. This is. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry.
Can you hear me?
He's better at this than I am. Anyway, I will talk louder. But yeah, I mean, as
Be closer. Just be closer.
Closer, okay. David is also a director. But yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the book, you do have fun with his delusions of being an artist and that kind of thing. But it is gentle, and there is compassion and empathy for him, which I think makes it deeper, you know. And I think as a reader, you feel that, and that kind of dovetails with what you're talking about, just that feeling that a lot of people have during these crises. But do you feel like, I mean, I don't want to give away the ending, but
I think you can. I've already bought it. So screw that.
Well, do you think that your character of Ridley, I mean, do you think he comes to any kind of epiphany?
I think think so. You know, the other thing that happens with these cataclysms is we enter into, certainly more recently than after 9/11, but we enter into an age of conspiracy where we try to find answers for what this terrible thing that happened. And you know, we've all heard the crazy false flag stuff about 9/11 and the crazy ballots and all this stuff. And I think that people, I try to have sympathy for the need, you know, even if I don't have a lot of sympathy for the result, you know, of whatever Trump trying to get back, whatever that, but I have sympathy for the need of certain people to want a villain, to want an answer for why their life isn't working out right or why they hurt. And this is kind of what Ridley goes through. Ridley, if you read the book, he kind of succumbs to a fever or delirium in a way because of if he has COVID or not. We're not really sure, but he's going through something physical. And because he's walked out into the city in the midst of this pandemic and he's made contact with a mystery woman that he knows nothing about. And he has a vision of all the conspiracies of mankind, of humanity, unfolding before him. He's getting all the answers. At one point, it's like, it says he sees the man called Shakespeare writing all of Shakespeare's plays. So, you know, it's the old conspiracy that Shakespeare, and of course I haven't answered it because I say it's the man called Shakespeare writing all Shakespeare. See, I think it was funny. So, but the point is, underneath all that, there's a personal tragedy or emotional intensity that he's getting to, and that was kind of my exploration of the mindset that's looking at these conspiracies with personal hurt, you know, that's underneath that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to empathize with the mind that wants these answers and the questions that evolve, I think, inevitably in the family, in you know, primary relationships between people and the hurt that happens there. So the relationship between him and his daughter is underpinning all these visions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely comes through. Now, you know, obviously the book is about this weird isolation, and now you're out sort of doing these public events, talking about the book. I was just wondering, what is that like? I mean, are you comfortable doing these, or? Yeah,
I mean, I've been doing it for 30 years, so I'm used to doing things in the dark, in private, and whether it's on a sound stage, somewhat lit and dark, or writing it, and then coming out and talking about it. You know, the fact of masks and stuff like that, that's definitely been part of the last 2 years, and I haven't done a lot of that.
Right.
But, yeah, not uncomfortable.
Yeah, even in the well, we're not really in the post-pandemic world.
No, we're not.
No, we're not, unfortunately. Darn it. Well, one of the...
Oh, yeah, I worry about it. Sure, I had COVID twice, though.
You did?
Yeah, I'm a two-time guy. I'm a two-time guy.
Did you have the Omicron?
I did. I got that one. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, the two-timers club, wow.
Omicron wasn't bad, but the first one wasn't great. The first one was sucky. That's the medical term.
Yes, yeah, 9 out of 10 doctors would say sucky, very sucky. You know, and obviously people know you from your acting career and all that kind of thing, but you've been writing for a while now. And I was commenting on sort of the self-deprecating aspect of humor in a way that's here. And this is something you've done in your career too, obviously. Anybody who saw you on the Larry Sanders Show where you were making fun of yourself, or in The Chair, this good series with Sandra Oh in it on Netflix, you make a very amusing cameo, making fun of the idea of you as this kind of celebrity academic. And I'm just sort of curious, why is that appealing to you, just to have this sort of self-deprecating, kind of self-parody element to things that you do, because they're both quite memorable. Those two in particular really stand out for me.
Yeah, well, you know, I believe I was born to play David Duchovny. So when the call comes for that guy, that name, I was like, yeah, I guess it should be me. With Sanders, you know, Sanders kind of made the mold of celebrities making fun of themselves in that way. That was the first.
Oh, what a great show!
That was the first show to really, really start doing that, and it's been copied to death at this point.
Yeah.
You know, like Matt Damon, Jimmy Kimmel, all that shit.
You were there first.
Too late. Also, the Man Crush. That was early. I was early
Exactly.
on the Man Crush.
Yeah, with Gary Shandling.
Do I?
If you haven't seen these, you should watch them. They're excellent.
So, but anyway, I guess the point is, I feel comfortable making fun of myself. I prefer to do it rather than somebody else. But I take myself seriously, but not in that way. Like I take my work seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I take writing seriously, I take acting seriously, but I also know that it's all a fucking game, and a ridiculous game at that, and we're just tap dancing till the curtain drops. So it's like, well, you know, just trying to get my point of view on it. And I guess, you know, the thing with Gary, my great friend Gary Shandling, was like, we were really good friends by the time we did I did the first one, I met him, and then I did the next few that people know better, where I had this man crush on him, and that was just like, that was kind of working through like what we felt for each other. It was like, hey, we really like each other. And then I said, yeah, what if I liked you a lot? But it wasn't sexual. Like, what is it? And he was like, what does that mean? I was like, I don't know. Let's try it. The thing with Amanda Pete, she does the chair.
The chair, yeah.
And she called me. I'd done a play with her, and she'd actually been in the second X-Files movie. So I've known Amanda for years, and I've worked with her a bunch. So she called and said, will you come and do this cameo as yourself? And I said, I've done that, you know, I don't really, let me look at it. And I looked at it, I said, I think it'd be funnier if I'm just playing somebody else, not me. And she said, no, I think it's better if it's you. And I said, okay. And I think she was right, yeah.
Yeah, I know, it was totally unexpected and quite a highlight. And again, for those of us who are fans of the X-Files, the callback to the red Speedo was a moment. That was a moment.
Yeah, that was difficult. Pittsburgh in the middle of winter. Of course, but I thought that was. I said, because Amanda said, "Oh, I love the idea of this guy, who's reliving like some iconic moment in his own personal time." And I'm like, "That's ridiculous." I mean, I think it's funny, but there's no coming back for that guy. And then people think I actually do that. That's the funny thing. Is that your house? Is that your house? It's like, no. That's the troubling part, is that if you do take the piss out of yourself, people think you're actually not doing that you're actually this arrogant fuck.
Really?
Yeah. So thank you.
Well, it was satirical.
I thought so.
I thought so too.
Maybe if Amanda came up here, she'd say, no, David's exactly like that.
Well, and again, I mean, not to get all X-Files-y on you, but since we are here in Oregon, the very first episode of the X-Files, as you know, is set in the fictional town in Oregon.
I don't know that. Is that true?
Yeah, it's set in Bellefleur.
Don't assume that I know anything about it.
And then in one of the revivals, The Curse of the Weremonster or whatever, there's another fictional Oregon town.
Didn't know that.
And obviously,
Is there a question after these
Yeah,
options?
yes, there is.
Supposed to be a quiz.
And the show obviously filmed in British Columbia for a long time. And I mean, I'm just wondering, do you think there's something about the Northwest, again, since we're here in Oregon,
It's
that
the woods.
lends
It's the
itself?
woods. It's the woods.
Yeah,
It's
lends
dark.
itself to
It's the
spooky
woods.
stuff?
Yeah, it's the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a show that can work in the city. That's not the mystery of that show. The mystery of that show is deeply hidden, and the woods is where you deeply hide things. So yeah. Spend a lot of time in the woods running after things.
Flashlights.
Times with flashlights, sometimes not. Just running. Run from here to there, okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, they're all creative pursuits, but I mean, since you do more creative pursuits than any of us really do in most of our lives, I'm just wondering, do they all kind of draw on the same thoughts, same urges to express yourself? I mean, how is writing something like this different than acting or writing a song or singing a song?
Well, it depends on the idea that occurs to me, and then I'll sit in judgment of that idea, phrase, whatever, character, moment, feeling, and I'll think, well, what's the best medium for that? Is it a song? Is it a poem? Is it a short story novel? Is it a play? Is it a movie? And then I'll try to make an informed judgment on that from the outside, because it's all very new. And then I'll, pursue it that way. But, like this wasn't a song, I mean, maybe there are moments in there that could be song-worthy. There are feelings in there that could be song-worthy. That's something to think about. But, I went to school for graduate school in English literature, so I've done a lot of reading and I've done a lot of studying of English literature. And when I started acting, I went away from that, and spent many years in Hollywood making TV and films, and learning about the form of the screenplay, the form of the teleplay, whatever, and story, learning about stories. So now I've come back to writing. When I was in graduate school, I don't think I was interested in story at all. That's not how you attack the books. It's very surgical and specialized in many ways. Not necessarily joyful either, but utilitarian, and like, I need to write a paper on this guy. I gotta write on adverbs. I'm gonna write on adverbs in Shakespeare, because everything else has been written. So it's not. And so really, it was actually doing the X-Files that would have brought me back to really acknowledging the glory of plot, and really getting into it. So now I'm so thankful for that as a writer, because Truly Like Lightning is a big plot heavy, and I never would have thought I needed a plot. I mean, the novel was going to be about language. Snooze.
Well, when you're writing, I mean, you're doing all the roles that take a collaborative team in film or TV. I mean, you're the producer, you're the director, you're the writer, you're the lighting cameraman, you're everything. Is there something particularly fulfilling about that?
Well, as you can imagine, it's fulfilling to not have to wait, to not have to raise money, to not have to cast. Well, those things are great, and I love being on set, I love directing, I love acting, all that, but there's a lot of wasted time. Not wasted, but wasted for me. As we light, as we shoot, it takes months and months to do things. But if I sit on my ass and write for 6 hours a day, in a couple months I've got something. I don't know if I'm going to publish it, but I've got something. And I can't say that for those other media, but the nice thing about it is it's solitary, and I'm the boss of everything. And that's also the horrible thing, because I do like collaborating. I like playing with other kids. And, I come from sports and team sports, and that's what I still like. And that's the way I think of acting. It's like a team sport, and I dig it.
Now, speaking of sports, does anybody know what's happening with the?
We'll just keep it a secret.
You were mentioning earlier you're interested in.
We'll cut it short enough.
Well,
Anybody know a good bar near here to?
Oh yeah.
That wasn't an overwhelming. I would have thought. Oh, it's Portland. Anybody know a good cannabis dispensary?
Yes.
I
know
the
the
audience, man. I saw that across the street. Oh, I saw it.
Well, now, obviously, you can do lots of things. I understand that you also have a graphic novel coming up with Dark
Do a
Horse.
graphic novel, Dark Horse, coming out in November, called Kepler, and it's science fiction, of all things. Never thought I'd go back there. No woods.
Spooky.
Yeah, it's truly science fiction.
Yeah.
Futuristic even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, who are you going to be collaborating with on that?
Philip Sevi did the illustrations, and I've been working with Dark Horse for a couple years now on it.
Oh, wow.
And we've just kind of muddled our way through to, we were going to do like 4 comics, but in the end we decided to just publish it as one. I don't know if it'll be in 4 parts within the book. One book, but it has, I guess, 4 acts. It has 4 acts. And I think it's really cool. It brings together a lot of my concerns with environmental degradation and colonialism and racism and,
All those fun-filled, lighthearted topics.
well,
I know.
got to deal with them.
Yeah.
Got to try. And science fiction, I think, is a good way. You can slide into allegory pretty easily with science fiction, so you don't have to address these things as if it was a policy paper, which is nice. I'll leave that to the pros. But a lot of what it means to be human, you can do by going to other planets. Right? I guess so.
Yeah. Plenty of talented people have done that. What is it about the graphic, sort of the graphic novel form that appealed to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I just kind of slid into that because I had the idea and I thought it might be a television show. You see, this is the question you asked earlier. It's like, okay, so I had this idea and I was like, television show. And then couldn't get that going, which was stupid on their part because it is a television show. And I do believe that once they see the graphic novel, they're going to go, oh, television show.
Apple TV.
Yeah.
Apple TV Plus, right on the phone.
So how could I? It was very visual, which I can do it in a novel, but I thought I'd never really tried a science fiction novel. I didn't think I wanted to write a science fiction novel, but I wanted to write this idea out. And it was really a meeting with Dark Horse where they said, they mentioned doing it as a comic. They said comic, and I said, oh, that'll look like a TV show. And I'll be able to do the story, get it out there, because I didn't have the whole story yet. But over the course of the past couple of years, we figured it out, and I'm really happy I did. And it's a different type of writing. There's not a lot of writing. I'm pretty verbose, and you can't. It's more like a screenplay. You can't really. You really got to be. You got to condense.
Yeah.
Which was a good lesson, at least for this form.
Well, and I assume you've got other things that you're working on.
No, that's it.
That's it. That's right.
Well, I got some music I'm working on, and hopefully we'll tour in October. We played here once before, a few years back. And we haven't gotten a chance at all to get out with Gesture Land, the third album. We want to. And in terms of other stuff, yeah, I mean, I'm in the process of developing, again, ideas that I have, and I think, honestly, what I usually do is I say, oh, that's a TV show or a movie, because then I can go dump it on somebody else's lap and say, hey, find a writer for this.
Develop this.
Find a director. Yeah, maybe I'll act in it, but go away for a year and come back and show me something brilliant. So I usually start out by saying, let's try to do that as a TV show, and then if it's not working, then I'll take it back and go, I'll write it as a novel or as a graphic novel or as something.
Well, I imagine, anything else you can tell us about, sort of publicly, or?
I don't think so. I mean, we can open it up to questions.
Yeah,
So
I think it's that time. I think it's that time.
You should ask your question.
So how do we want to do this?
I don't know, just raise your hand. I think we're gonna need a mic back there, or maybe can you scream? That's good.
Yell it.
Of all of the creative endeavors that you do, which one have you found the most satisfying?
They're all satisfying, just in different ways. I don't know how to answer. I mean, music is a surprise to me because it wasn't not something that I ever did. And it just kind of happened in the last 10 years. So that's very satisfying as a surprise because I would have thought never. Because they never said, hey David, you sing. So that's a total surprise to me. Novel writing is satisfying because it's just me, and it's kind of not an ego way, but it's like, oh, I brought that thing into the world. It didn't exist before. Here it is, an actual object, not a Kleenex box, but a book. And there are moments where I'll just be like, look at that, it's a book, and that's satisfying. And then the other, with acting, it's piecemeal. You're a part of something, and you can be proud of a performance, or proud of a movie, or proud of a show, and proud of the team that did it. And it's different kind of satisfaction.
I have a question.
Okay.
When you get a writer's block, what is your outlet getting through to your aha moment?
Questions about writer's block, and I don't believe in it. I think you just you have to write. I mean, you might be writing shit, or you might be writing badly, but eventually you'll write out of your writer's block. I don't believe in writer's block.
I want to know about your writing process.
Well, when I've writer's block, if I have an idea, I don't write all the time. I'm not writing right now. I mean, but I like even this month. So if I have an idea and I decide that it's worth writing, then I'll go at it really hard and I'll write it fast, and then I get consumed with it, and that's all I want to be doing. So it doesn't mean that it always goes smoothly, and there are times that it's going more easily than not, and there are corners that I paint myself into, plot-wise and stuff like that. But the process is really fun when I'm doing it. It's not fun to just sit on your ass and just write all the time, but it's fun to be interested in something. I enjoy being engaged in something, and that's kind of what's fun about acting, is because they force you to be engaged. A call sheet comes to your house every day and says you have to be here and be creative.
The spotlight's on you.
At 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
So, and that's cool. It's pressure, but it's like I like it because I have to.
You have to show up.
Nobody's telling me I got to sit and write.
Yeah.
But when I'm going, it feels that way.
You're in the flow. So
Yeah.
what's your best advice for an aspiring author?
To really carve out that time for yourself where you can sit and aren't distracted, and don't have your phone near you, and don't have anything near you, and just see what you got. And just sit your ass in the chair. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and it's hard to court the idea of the failure of it. Like, what if this is no good, or what if I don't have it? So, but you gotta confront that. We writers have to confront that.
Yeah, well, not so much for journalists, because we're not doing that kind of writing.
Well,
We're
you're
not
more like
thinking
an
to-
actor, where somebody says, "Okay, we need it tomorrow."
Yeah.
And I like that too. I like somebody forcing me to be creative.
Yeah.
But it's not that way with novel writing. Unless you sign in advance and you spent it, and you gotta write. You know, so that would be my advice. Go get a huge advance, spend it on things that you don't need. Right.
And then you'll be forced.
You pick people because I don't want to make enemies.
Oh, well, how about you? You're right here.
Out of everything that you've done, what's been your favorite? What do you
Out of
think
everything
about
that I've done, what's been my favorite? My children.
Good answer.
Well, maybe we should get some people in the back.
I couldn't answer that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Depends on the day.
Let's see, how about the person with the mask on right here, this person?
So for your new novel, The Reservoir, you talked a lot about questions that we can't answer, and I heard that like the plague is kind of a similar, like Albert Camus' The Plague, and his ideals of absurdism in that book, and about how like there's all these questions that we ask when really the answer is there isn't an answer. So I'm just curious, like was Albert Camus an inspiration for you for this, or that reflection of absurdism during the pandemic and all that?
I believe I read The Plague, but I'm not sure. I know I've read The Stranger.
Yeah, similar absurdism
Yeah,
ideas.
but I'm aware of The Plague, and in fact, in my acknowledgments, I acknowledge The Plague. So I should have read it. But I think maybe I just know what it's about. And I think maybe I knew that people would say, hey, it's like The Plague, and I'd have to go, yeah, but look, I already said it was. For me, it was more Death in Venice. That was really the template for me. One of my favorite, is it a novella? Short story? Yeah. So it's really about, very, very much about a guy feeling needs that he hasn't felt in a while, and it takes him into a plague city. It takes him into danger. And in terms of the answers, yeah, I mean, to me it was like lots of answers, you know, which means no answer. Yeah. In terms of the absurdity of it, not sure. I'd have to go back and read The Plague, or, you know, not being flip, I mean, I'd love to read it. My dad's favorite novel was The Stranger, and I know I read it in high school, but I haven't in a long time. I don't know if I answered your question, but
I guess I just am wondering, like, during the pandemic, were we all just like looking for these like life answering questions, sitting on our apartments and wondering like, is there an answer out there? So I'm just wondering, like,
Yeah, no,
was
there's
Ripley questioning
not.
that?
There's no answer. No, but the desire for an answer is the
Right.
beauty.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the manipulation of people's desires for answers is the horror, you know. And what I think we all had, what I had during the pandemic was this feeling of, you know, it exaggerated our, you know, as you have your camera out, it exaggerated our living life through our screens. Because actually we were told, hey, it's vitamins, it's good for you. Because if you don't live your life through a screen, you're actually going to go out and kill yourself. So it's this weird thing of like, oh, it's good for me. And I was watching through the screens like we all were, and the world was on fire, and there was a million things happening every day, and people were writing histories about it the next day on television. And there was a real sense of chaos out there. But on a personal level, there wasn't anything happening because you were in your room. So it's this weird vertigo of, it's all happening. There's nothing happening. And I don't think I'd ever experienced that. I don't think humanity has ever experienced that. And I hate phones. Thank you.
Okay, how about you?
I was just kind of curious, with all your books are very diverse, your music is diverse. We know your work in TV with Aquarius and California Vacation, diverse. Is that just because you're that freaking awesome and can do all that, or because you're kind of maybe a little tired of going back to the X-Files, and you know, was there any?
Oh.
Did you not like going back and kind of repeating that and maybe some
Well,
of
I
the
could-
just to?
You didn't hear that question, did you? It's like, yeah, I don't know how to rephrase it. But I'll just answer it, and, it just has to be good enough. I think, well, to go with the X-Files, like, I wouldn't have gone back if I didn't think there was something interesting to do. And what I found interesting, and I don't know if I answered this question, but Mulder in the beginning was, he's kind of had a boyish enthusiasm. He was gonna like speak the truth to power, and he had all this energy about it. And then 25 years later, I'm gonna play this guy. I can't play him the same way. So the question was, yeah, that's an interesting task for an actor. Like, it's interesting to have to play the same play for 10 years in a row, like in Long Day's Journey into Night, like Eugene O'Neill.
So you don't think that any of your works though are more diverse because you're trying to break out of?
Yeah, no. I think, Californication might have been a little pushback on, but I feel like, the people that would think like X-Files was straight-laced or deadpan, I was like, you're not watching closely enough. So I would have said that. But I did feel it, like if it was, it's deadpan, whatever, it's like this or that. And I was like, I'm gonna show you. And then once I did that, and then I felt like, okay, I'm done, like trying to prove to people that I can do this or do that or do the other thing. So, but it is fun to do different things. So it's like, but
No rebellion.
only Californication. That would have been like
Let's see, how about somebody way in the back there? Let's see, I can't see who that is. How about this person, how about the redhead with the glasses? Yes.
Okay, so earlier you had.
See, I couldn't say, as a guy, like if I'd said that, we live in a fucked up world.
No, because it's
Red
taking a
with
puppy.
glasses. Cancel.
So
Oh, you got a fox.
earlier,
Oh.
you had mentioned
Yes.
processing history through means of literature, etc. Is there anything else historically you've been compelled to process through means of writing or any other form? Anything that might have, I don't know how to phrase it. Now that you've finished writing about this massive worldwide pandemic, what else are you interested in pursuing process?
I'm open to suggestions. It's like I would love, I like to have something to write. So I've got to figure out a story, and then underneath that, like I have to trust myself. This might get back to writing. If I think of a story, or I think of a character going through a story, like I did with this guy, even though it's not a full-length novel, but it was a story. And it excites me, and then I think, oh, there's something there. It's not just the story, but there's a reason why that story is exciting me. And the writing of it is how I'm gonna figure that out. So it would never be like the history of this. I'm not a historian. It would never be the history of that or the history of this. It would always be like, oh, if I was drawing a historical story, I would think, what is it in that I want to write underneath it? In this case, pandemic, but it's a father yearning for his daughter, really. So that's, to me, I have to trust myself, if I'm attracted to a story, that there's an understory that's there, that I'm gonna get at by writing.
Okay, let's see, now there's somebody behind the person who just asked the question. How about you?
I was wondering what.
Very gender neutral on that.
I don't want to make any assumptions.
Biggest lessons that I've learned from my kids? I think the biggest lesson I've learned from my kids is like powerlessness. Whoever is laughing like that, he knows. And what I hope that they learned from me was resilience, or response to failure. The use of shame, but the abuse of shame. Caring what other people think is necessary. It's built into us, but social media and all that is such a oppressive force right now. So that's beside the point. But really, failure being an okay thing to go through, not a scarlet letter forever, but just a moment in time.
Okay, let's see, how about this person with the brown hair here and the glasses on top of the head? I'm doing such a great job of
I
describing.
teach theater, and I was wondering what kind of advice you would give to young actors.
I'm trying to be funny. Young actors, just to play, really. That it's play. I mean, any art is play. Even if it's deadly serious, it's still play. And to take it seriously as play. That's why I'm not a teacher, though, right there.
Okay, let's see, how about somebody from over here?
That's a lot of responsibility.
I know. This person with the baseball cap on.
I was wondering, would you do X-Files and any other aspect with TV show, movie, video game, comic, just being involved in any?
Would I?
Yes, would
Oh,
you?
I don't know. It just depends on, like this question earlier. If it came my way and I could see the challenge, it's not just a money grab or something. So yeah, I would certainly consider it. I mean, I don't try to think about it. I mean, it doesn't interest me as a creative person to think about how do I get back into that venue.
Okay, but you're saying there's a chance.
Sure.
Okay, how about
Is that from a movie?
Yes.
Is that Dumb and Dumber?
Yes.
Okay, you there with the glasses on top of that.
You're the last man on earth.
I was going to ask, years from now, do you think you're going to write a memoir?
No. The question was, will I write a memoir years from now? And the answer is no. Unless I need the money.
I have another question.
Oh, let's see, how about you all the way back there with the blondish hair?
Rear Window in the sense of this book? Yeah. Have I ever had a strange Rear Window experience? Not really. When I was in high school, my buddy and I, Jason Begay, who's on a TV show now, he's on Chicago PD. This is weird that we went to high school together. He had some kind of laser. That's it, that's all. Now he had this like it would shoot like a red dot, but it would shoot it far, far away, and it wouldn't expand. It was just a tiny red dot. And so we lived in the city, and he lived on the Upper West Side, and he would I don't know, his uncle had it, but he had it, this laser, and we would try to, disturb people. Like in Windows across the way, trying to get a cat involved with it. I don't remember what happened. But I guess the answer is no. I haven't had any good Rear Window. Have you? Has anybody had a good Rear Window experience here?
Oh, well.
Oh, we got somebody. All right, talk amongst yourselves.
Let's see, how about you all the way back there with the mask on that you just took off?
Another Kristi Turnquist story.
I think it's a longish answer probably, but I'll try and talk about it. I know it so very well, and I established that I'm lazy and I don't like to research, so I don't have to. I can write about that city without doing anything. Miss Subways had to be in New York because it's about the subway. Bucky Fucking Dead had to be in New York because it was about a Yankee fan and a Boston fan. This had to be in New York because it was about this view across the reservoir. But I had no special need to write about New York, and I have no particular love for it really anymore. It's just so part of me. I spent so many years of my life there that it's in my bones, it's in my blood, and sometimes I write about it. Sometimes I write about it. I guess it's more in me than I like to think, because I don't want to live there anymore, and it's not the same city that I grew up in. I'm not condemning it. It's like the New York of my mind is like the New York in Bucky Fucking Dead. It's like 1978 New York. I'm sure the New York of 2022 is wonderful, but I'm not so interested in it. That's just me.
Okay, we're getting a little short on time. We've got time for a couple more questions.
Is it
then?
halftime?
We've got time for probably 2 more questions. So let me see who I'm gonna pick. How about?
Right here. No, we're right here.
All right, go.
Right here.
So I want to know what writers inspire you and
What writers inspire me, and who am I reading? So many, I read a lot of poetry too, but when I'm writing, or since I've become like a writer of fiction, I think I read less fiction because it can be intimidating or infuriating, or you can steal stuff that you're not aware of, or just kind of fall into somebody's rhythm and style. But I think Philip Roth was an important modern author for me. But going back to the greats, the Victorian era, George Eliot and Jane Austen and Charles Dickens, and I think Richard Powers is amazing. Don DeLillo, Kushner. Who's A Visit to the Goon Squad? Was that Rachel Kushner? Is it? Oh, Jennifer Egan. Jennifer Egan. Yeah, that's a beautiful book. Franzen, I thought The Corrections was amazing. So yeah. Well, is there part 2 of that?
well, I think it shows. Like when I read Bucky, I think that I was like, he's so good.
Oh, that. Yeah, well, it's also from just being a graduate student. It's all in my head, so it's almost like I have to get it out to move on. But I find that I continually reach for touchstones in my literary past. There's Emily Dickinson in this one, just as a epigraph, So the epigraphs to this book are interesting because Kashmir, the Led Zeppelin song, plays a part in this story, The Reservoir. And Kashmir was my alarm for years. Mostly because I didn't know how to change my mind. But I'd set it for Kashmir, and then I was like, yeah, I liked it, but then I would have changed it like a year earlier, but I didn't know how. Yeah, so the additional epigraph to this was about 6 lines from the song Kashmir, and then do you know this? Authors have to pay for their own epigraphs. Like if somebody's going to charge you, and songs, usually books are in the public domain, you don't pay for them, but songs, even just lyrics, it's not like I'm adding Kashmir the song to the book, but even lyrics, they charge you half of what they would charge for the song. When you buy a song in a movie, you pay for the performance and for the publishing rights. So you pay twice. And the publishing people are hideous. And they just want their money. So I sent out for the rights to Kashmir with dread in my heart, knowing that it would be expensive. It was like $3,000, and I was like, I have it, but I didn't want to pay. So I ended up finding a quote by Robert Plant about the making of the song Kashmir, which I feel is a pretty good. Although I'm sure Robert Plant wasn't the guy that said, "Give me my $3,000," but still, it was.
All right, so should we do one more?
Same thing happened on Truly Like Lightning. Streets Have No Name, the U2 song, $3,000. I was like,
Sorry about
Edward Abbey now. Got Edward Abbey, put him in there for free. Now, if the publishers paid for it, then I'd have all the songs. But no.
Okay, so you want to do one more? One more question? Okay, oh my goodness. How about this gentleman right here with the black t-shirt on? Or no, yeah, you there with the mask. Yeah, you.
Thank you. Some people say there are only 3 stories in the world, or that we only have one story to tell. In all the media that you exercise your skills in, is there a story that you are trying to tell or wanting to tell?
You all hear that question? There's only 3 stories in the world, possibly. And if that's true, is there a story I'm trying to tell? No. But I think, you probably condense it like Joseph Campbell, that kind of stuff is very interesting to read. And probably true. And it's satisfying for us as humans to see those stories, I think. There's a reason why we keep on telling that story over and over. But, if you get involved with a long-running television show, it's always going to be a soap opera. After the first year or whatever, the first thing happens, it's a soap opera. Like there's death, there's marriage, there's kids, every show is that after a year. But just to more specifically try to answer the question, as an actor, I find myself attracted to characters. I always call it the bad priest or the good priest. Good priest, bad person is what I'm attracted to. I'm attracted to somebody who can effectively help people, but cannot help himself. To me, that's a story I always love telling. It doesn't have to be a priest, a teacher, wonderful teacher, mess in private life, stuff like that. I find that a fascinating story that I keep coming back to. That's just one. I don't know, what are the 3? Well, we don't have to get into it, but I think there's probably more than 3. But, I think I'm agreeing with you by saying it all ends up being soap opera, eventually, which is fine. It's TV.
Well, let's see. Okay, how about you?
Been holding this. David, would you say, in referencing Joseph Campbell, do you think that you have a mindfulness about your contribution to contemporary mythological archetypes when you were geeky young Mulder? Like, did you think, holy shit, this is really going to become part of our culture in the way that, Leonard Nimoy looked at his communicator, and could he have imagined? Like, were you aware of that?
Let me just say,
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy only did 2.5 years of Star Wars. And I got shit for trying to get off that show after 7 years. No, never. I just got trying to pay the rent, so. I got sent that script. I had no interest in aliens. I didn't think a lot of people did. I thought it was a really well-written script, so I wanted to do it, and I thought the character was interesting. He was FBI, but he was a little irreverent, because I didn't have any interest in playing like a Law and Order type show. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. This guy's a little he's a little different. Plus, I wouldn't have to research it and be real. See the patterns. And then I actually thought, well, there are aliens or there aren't. We'll see them or we won't. If we don't see them, how long are people going to put up with that? And if we do see them, then all the air's out of the balloon. So I thought, okay, I'll make some money for a year. And then I'll be able to pick and choose after that for another year or two. I'll have enough to live on. But I never thought ever. One doesn't think that way. One can't. How can you live your life that way? You just can't.
You have
Just one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, and you know, up in Vancouver 14 hours a day, and like 3 years later, like, oh my God, well, everybody's watching the show, that's interesting. And 30 years later, they're still talking about it, and that's, you know, it's really a testament, not being falsely humble, but it's Chris Carter's really, you know, he's a prescient, I don't know the word, but prophetic, even more so today, you know, because, you know, just look around. It's really the world of the X-Files out there now. It wasn't when we were making it. So I think that's really why it remains. But
how Fringe gives the little nods to X-Files, and
I've never seen it, yeah.
It's great, it's subtle, and it's because of you and what you.
Yeah, well, yeah, certainly they tried to, you know.
Give credit where credit is due.
Well, no, they didn't. You are. I think they've tried to do the sci-fi thing. Even I haven't seen Stranger Things, but I imagine it's just similar. But what Chris was doing at the time was like he had loved the scary stuff when he was a kid, and he Kolchak and Twilight Zone, and he brilliantly just thought, hey, there's nothing spooky on TV, there's nothing scary on TV. I'm going to try and work in that field. And then what happens is once you get the reins on a show and it's going, you're forced to be creative. You're forced to keep coming up with the goods. I don't think he ever thought he was going to have to do 215 or however how many episodes there are. And it's an amazing thing. You know, I talked about the earlier question about either, you know, writing or acting. You know, I like being forced to be creative. That's TV is all that. It's all like, give me that product now. So your brain can do amazing things that way. Or just an example of like, story-wise, and I'll end on this, you know, it's going on and on, aren't we? So, but story-wise, I don't remember what year, but I think it's the first year Jillian got pregnant, so they had to write, that was not planned, they had to write her out of a couple episodes, and they had to write her light a little before and after that. And so that created the whole mythology that we never would have went into. So that's necessity is the mother of invention. You don't know what you can create unless your back is against the wall. And that way, oh, I'm taking one of your leads away. What do you got?
Okay, well, on that note, I guess I just want to thank you.
Sign some books.
Yeah, time to sign some books. And again, thanks for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's have another round of applause for David Duchovny. All right, so as you know, we gave out tickets for the signing line. We're going to call up the first group of folks to join the ticket line in just a second. You're going to line up over here on this side of the room. My coworker is going to raise his hand, and you're going to start the line right there, and you're going to line up that way. So let's get going. Take a look at the last 4 digits of your ticket. If you have 8030 or earlier,